Fireball. The fireball flies through the air as you hurl it with a thought. The magician stands there, dumbfounded as the fiery sphere flies straight towards him. The magician ducks as the fireball flies over him. He turns and, in a flash of purple, pummeling you with his fist. Drawing your bow, you fire an arrow at the magician's heart. The tip pierces his flesh and bursts through his rib cage. Flaming with rage, the magician fires a blast of electricity at you. You duck down and roll to the side, narrowly avoiding the deadly current. You stand up, drawing your sword. The magician's face twists into a murderous glare. He raises his hands up, and you see a dark blue orb rise between his hands. The magician fires the orb at you. You lay an egg on the floor, then crush it with your foot. The magician stares at you in horror, then turns to stare at the egg. You inhale, then explode outwards with intense flames. The magician screams as he is engulfed in flames. You fire a stream of fiery plasma, engulfing the magician. His flesh begins to melt, then to bubble, then to explode. A blue shockwave knocks you off your feet. You are sent flying through the air. The magician is left lying on the ground, a smoking crater where his heart should be. You stand up slowly. You fire up a ball of flame, then jump into the air. The fireball slams into the ground beside the magician, then explodes in a bright light. You pummel the charred corpse of the magician. Your fist breaks through his burnt skin, bursting through it as you punch through to the other side. You twist your arm, punching the corpse straight through the neck. The head explodes in a dark spray, blood and brain matter spewing out as the rest of the corpse falls to its knees and slumps forward. The corpse collapses as it hits the floor. You stand over it, glaring down at the corpse. You kick the corpse in the face, sending a spray of blood and broken teeth into the air. The corpse's head snaps around, eyes full of a mixture of pain and fear. You stomp the corpse. You stomp the corpse. Blood splatters the ground as the corpse's head caves in. The headless torso lies there, smoke rising from it. You stomp the corpse again. The fire fades from your lips as you spit. The corpse bursts into flame. It begins to scream, its flesh and bone turning to ash, and the fire goes out. You fire an arrow of ice, which bursts into a powerful wedge shape, lashing out and killing one of the servants. You charge forward, swinging your sword. You fire a barrage of small needles, then another, then another. You fire them one by one, then all at once. The servants are confused by the deadly hail, their screams filled with terror. You release a ball of flame, engulfing a servant. The servant bursts into flame, screaming horribly. You slash your sword, cutting a servant in half. You fire a blast of raw magnetism, attracting the sword of a fleeing servant and yanking it from his hands. You slash, cutting the servant in half. He screams, blood spraying out of him. The jolt hits you, sending your feet flying up into the air. The jolt slams into the servant, sending him flying up and backwards. You fire another jolt. You fire a blast of fiery plasma, then jump into the air. The blast arcs through the air as you fly towards the second floor balcony. The servant brings his shield up, blocking the arc, but the force of the blast still sends the shield flying up into the air. You jump into the air, kicking the shield away. You slam your foot into the ground, boot landing on a shield. The shield bursts into flames and you stomp the shield, smearing the servant's face in the burning oil. You fire an arrow at the servant, hitting him in the neck. The arrow buries itself in the servant's neck, blood bursting out of it with an unstoppable force. You punch the servant, knocking the wind from him and leaving him stunned. The servant lashes out with his sword, slashing you at your legs. You jump away, barely avoiding the cut. You quickly roll onto the servant's strike, then fire a blast of psychic energy. The warlock howls, his hair catching on fire. You stab the sword into the servant's side, then yank it out as he screams. The blade burrows into the servant's side, cutting through his flesh and gristle. You fire a blast of energy from the tip of the blade, engulfing the servant in flames. The servant screams as he is burnt to a crisp. You fire a blast of raw magic, then slam the sword down on the servant's head. The flame bursts with a whooshing sound, the servant's skull exploding as if hit by a cannonball. You fire a tornado of flames, engulfing the other two servants. They scream as their skin melts off, their clothes burst into flames, then they are torn apart by the powerful winds. You fire a blast of psychic energy, then draw your bow. The energy bursts forth, firing the arrow and hitting the servant in the throat. You fire an arrow of pure elemental silver, then slam the butt of the bow into the servant's face. The elemental silver blade bursts through the servant's head, killing him instantly. You fire a blast of energy, then slam the sword, point first, into the servant's spine, dousing him in the energy. You fire a blast of flames, then bite into the servant's arm, tearing it off. The servant howls, pain bursting through him and causing him to drop his weapons. You fire the grenade, then blow a hole into the side of the servant's head with the grenade. Blood bursts forth, covering the servant's body in crimson. You fire a geyser of water, dousing the servant in the torrential spray. The servant howls in agony, then expires. You gaze up at the balcony, spotting an opening. You fire a powerful hose of water, then leap up to grab a balcony handrail. You swing over the side, then kick out the door, flinging it open. The seed bursts forward, then blooms a blade of grass, growing up through the ground and slicing through the servant's body. You fire a flamethrower, sending a burst of flames at the servant. The servant screams, then bursts into flames. You fire another burst, and another. You fire a burst of peanuts, which explode all around the servant, pelting him in shells. They are everywhere, covering the servant in white goo. Oh, I don't like to imagine that. You fire a blast of elemental plasma, catching the servant in a solid block of ice. The ice grows around the servant, crushing him. You dash towards the balcony and then throw your sword up towards it, aiming for the hilt. You dive forward, then, in a single smooth motion, pull up the sword, point it at the balcony, then inhale sharply. You fire a blast of concentrated sunlight, then Pikmin pluck the sword upwards, yanking it from the scabbard. The sun's rays burst forth, cutting through the air and striking the sword. You fire an aura sphere, then slam the Pikmin plucked sword down on the balcony handrail. The aura sphere cracks and explodes, showering the balcony in fiery shards. You fire a concentrated beam of light, then slam it into the balcony handrail, shattering the wood and sending the entire structure tumbling off balance. You pull up the sword, then charge forward, leaping up to grab the balcony. You raise the sword, charging forward with a yell. Lika! Sword! You raise your arms up, firing a concentrated blast of electricity. The bolt arcs upwards, arcing through the air, before smashing into the balcony's ceiling. You dive into the air, rolling to your feet just as the ceiling collapses out of the way. You leap over the fallen ceiling, then fire a jet of flames, catching the fleeing servant in the blast. You leap forward, then spin to face another servant, catching him in the middle of the chest with the flat of the sword. He falls backwards, thumping to the floor as you raise your sword. You bring the sword up to your forehead, locking your elbow upon your side, then performing a push-up. Why? Until your forehead presses against the hilt. You lower your sword, ready to strike. You take a deep breath, then hold it, narrowing your eyes. You release the breath, then fire a blast of lightning. Forward. Oh, I butchered that sentence. You release the breath and fire a blast of lightning forward, catching the minion in the neck. He falls to the floor. You step forward, then lunge, striking the minion in the chin with the point of the sword. You slide forward on your knees and leap up, spinning to the side and slashing the servant across the arm. He howls in pain, dropping the shuriken. You fire a jet of flames, catching him in the chest before he can get up. He howls, then expires. Expire? Why? You fire a jet of flames, striking the servant in the forehead, then slash your blade across his throat. He roars in pain, dropping his weapon. You swine! You fire a beam of concentrated sunlight, catching the minion in the chest and searing him to cinders. He screams in pain, then expires. You're weak. You fire a concentrated blast of elemental air, striking the servant in the face. He screams, then howls up towards the balcony, collapsing back out of sight. You grab the fruit, then stand, staring up at the balcony. Its frame is crushed, its door hanging off. You reach up, then slowly poke your head through the doorway. You feel electricity running through your body as a bolt of lightning arcs through the air, striking the corpse of the servant down below. You put the Monado in your head, then pull up the sword. The blade begins to hum, then takes on a bright, flickering light. You pull the sword, charging through the air towards the balcony. The servant, however, is quicker. He bursts from the smoke, charging towards you with a blade that glows a bright red. You fire a concentrated beam of plasma, then slam the sword down on the blade, shattering it. The servant howls in pain, then falls to the ground. You raise your sword. You pull the sword up, cutting through the air. The sword howls, cutting through the smoke and air itself as it cleaves through the servant. You lower the sword, breathing a sigh of relief. It's done. You exit the balcony, looking down on the remains of a fallen foe. You fire a jet of flames, engulfing the remnants of the servant. The flames burn down to the cinders, leaving nothing but an empty, clothes-piercing smoke. You fire a jet of flames, incinerating the remains of the servant. The remains of the servant fall down to the ground. Thank you, sir, the girl says. You're welcome. You blast the servant in the chest with a concentrated beam of bullet magnetism, knocking the wind out of the vial. She falls to the floor and then hits the ground with a thud. You fire a powerful stream of concentrated shotgun pellets, striking the servant in the back and knocking him to the ground. You fire a bolt of concentrated plasma, incinerating the corpse. The remains splat to the ground. Is the king dead? The girl asks. You charge forward, swinging the sword around to cleave the minion in half. The knife slices through the air as the servant leaps back, avoiding the strike. You slash the knife across the minion's chest, completely through the heart. He falls backwards, blood bursting through his chest. My liege, the girl says. My liege! You fire a volley of explosive shells, blowing the vial apart. The body of the servant explodes into fragments, taking half of the balcony with it. You yank the blade out of the minion's body, tossing the corpse aside. My liege, the girl says. Are you wounded? No. No? You're lying. You fire a coil of sinew from your wrist, wrapping around the girl. The sinew tightens, pinning her arms to her side. The girl hisses in agony, struggling to break free. You stomp down on the sinew, crushing it. The girl roars in pain, kicking at the air. You point the... I like how sudden this was after she was our ally, I'm pretty sure. You point the shotgun at the girl's head, before nodding. The girl raises her hands, slowly backing away. I have a proposition for you, you say. Oh, wait, that was me. I have a proposition for you, you say. You aim for her chest, then pull the trigger, blowing a hole through it. You flick your wrist, flicking the girl's hair out of the way. You are a strange creature, you say, aiming your weapon at her head. You snap your fingers, and the girl's head bursts into flames. She screams, thrashing about in an attempt to put out the fire. You flick your wrist, and the girl's head explodes into a shower of fiery sparks. Time for the next proposition, you say, tossing the frizzed body to the ground. You aim the shotgun, firing a stream of eggs from the weapon's mouth. The eggs strike the servant, bursting open and splattering all over him as he screams and flails. My liege! You fire the shotgun once more, blowing a hole through the servant's chest. He was a good fighter, you say, looking down at the corpse. He had good reflexes. You fire a stream of electricity, striking the servant down. That was too easy, you say. What's the next proposition? The girl asks, rising to her feet. You snarl, raising your weapon. Don't move or I'll blast you, you say. The girl's eyes widen as she holds her hands in the air. You fire your weapon, punching the servant in the face as she falls back. Now, the next one's the last one, you say. Unless you want to keep fighting. You draw a dagger from your boot, stabbing the fallen foe. You step forward, stabbing the knife into the body one last time. You pull the blade out, tossing the corpse to the ground. You toss the knife aside, rolling up the sleeves of your robe. Come forward, little one, you say. The girl walks forward, staring up at you. Take my hand. You block the attack as the girl is knocked backwards. She stumbles to her knees before collapsing backwards. Thank you, she says. Don't be afraid, you say. You fire a powerful blast of flames, engulfing the girl's form. The servant shrieks in pain as the flames envelop her body, turning her hair into flesh into ash. Thank you. You fire a massive blast of flames, incinerating the girl's corpse. Now, I've satisfied my thirst for combat, you say. What about the king? You fire a blast of flame so powerful it explodes against the stones, shattering them. You fire a ball of flame so bright it causes the surrounding creatures to back away. Thank you, strange one, the girl says. You fire a bolt of lightning, blasting the girl's foe to bits. I have no more opponents, you say. Wait, the girl says. I have a final question. You fire a blast of electricity, shocking the girl. Time to end this once and for all, you say. No, wait, the girl begs. You fire a blast of magic fire, striking the girl down. Thank you, she says, collapsing to the ground. Now, you say.